You know, for something we carry around in our heads all day, the human brain remains one of the greatest mysteries out there. We often compare it to the most powerful computers we know, but, well, what if that comparison isn't quite right? What if parts of our brain are operating on principles far more advanced than anything a classical computer can achieve? Today, we're taking a deep dive into some really fascinating ideas from author Jay Alfred. He explores this radical proposition that our brains aren't just one kind of computer, but maybe a sophisticated hybrid.
A hybrid, you mean like
Yeah,
part classical, part something else?
exactly. A classical processor in one hemisphere, and get this, a quantum processor in the other.
Wow, okay. That's a big claim.
It is. So our mission today is to unpack how our left and right brains might operate with fundamentally different logics, and how this could explain some of those, extraordinary human computational abilities, and maybe even how ancient practices like meditation might be tapping into these very quantum processes.
Sounds like quite the journey.
Yeah. Get ready for some aha moments that might just change how you think about your own mind. Okay, let's unpack this. So, the question of whether the brain operates as a computer, it often gets a quick no in the general
Right.
consensus.
People usually dismiss it pretty quickly.
But as Jay Alfred provocatively points out, maybe that question isn't precise enough. Like, what type of computer are we talking about?
And which part of the brain? That's a crucial distinction.
Definitely.
Because what's fascinating here is that research suggests the left and right cortices, they don't just process sensory info differently. They might actually generate distinct realities.
Distinct realities. How so?
Well, just consider the physical organization. The left brain, for example, typically has a greater density of cells, more gray matter,
Yeah.
which suggests a focus on processing within specific localized regions,
Yeah.
focused tasks.
Okay.
The right brain, in contrast, seems to emphasize processing across broader regions, connecting different areas more widely.
So the structure itself hints at different jobs.
These structural differences strongly hint at fundamentally distinct functional approaches between the two hemispheres. It's really suggestive.
Okay, so let's dive into the left brain first. We often associate it with logic, analytical thought, the usual stuff. If we're thinking of it as a classical processor, how does its functioning actually line up with classical computers? Is there solid evidence?
Well, yeah, there is. Think about standard computers. They turn electrical signals into definite on or off states, right? Binary logic.
Zeros and ones.
Exactly. And we see similar operating principles in parts of the brain. Professor Randall O'Reilly at the University of Colorado Boulder, he and his team found that neurons in areas like the prefrontal cortex and basal ganglia effectively work like logic gates.
Logic gates, like in a computer chip.
Kind of. They exist in two states, active or inactive. On or off.
Yeah.
Andrew Newberg and Dr. Eugenia Keeley also identified these as binary operators,
Yeah.
so it fits that classical model.
And does brain imaging back this up?
It does. If we look at fMRI studies, O'Reilly's team showed simple math, like addition and subtraction, consistently lights up specific areas in the left hemisphere. We're talking the inferior parietal lobe, the supramarginal gyrus, specific left brain spots.
Interesting.
And there's more. A Malaysian medical research team found the left frontal lobe is critical for multiplication. It all points towards the left side for these kinds of operations.
So the research seems pretty clear then. A binary on or off mechanism in these left brain regions. It lines up really well with classical computation.
It does.
And this left brain is tied to our conscious verbal processing, right? It lets us put perceptions into words.
Yes, exactly. Logic is very dualistic, you could say. It forces us into clear choices, true, false, good, bad. It sticks to the law of non-contradiction.
That classic either-or way of thinking makes sense. But what about those moments when insights just appear? Or when we solve really complex problems without consciously, thinking through every step?
Yes, intuition, gut feelings.
Exactly. And that's where we need to turn our attention to the right brain. This hemisphere is often linked with intuitive abilities, characterized as unconscious. It seems to process information very differently from the verbal, conscious left brain.
So you're asking, could this be our potential quantum supercomputer, operating with a different kind of logic?
Yeah, maybe that both and logic instead of either or.
Yeah, it certainly raises an important question. How do we explain those extraordinary human computational abilities that seem to just bypass conventional logic?
Like the stories you hear about mathematical geniuses.
Exactly. Think about someone like Srinivasa Ramanujan or Shakuntala Devi. She was famously known as the human computer.
Great, I remember reading about her. Didn't she do some insane calculation?
Insane is right. She found the 23rd root of a 201-digit number in just 50 seconds. 50.
Oh.
And both Ramanujan and Davy performed these incredibly complex computations, but often couldn't explain how they did it. Sometimes they attribute it to, well, God.
Which suggests it wasn't a conscious step-by-step process.
Precisely. And it's not just them. Artistic savants also show these almost superhuman abilities to factorize large numbers instantaneously, things far beyond what current neuroscience can easily explain with classical models.
Hmm.
Psychologist Michael Persinger even suggests the left brain can sometimes interpret the right brain's activity as a kind of separate sensed presence, maybe even God during mystical experiences.
Why? Because it's so different from the left brain's usual way of working.
Exactly. Its processing is just so alien to our conscious logical understanding.
Okay, so if these unconscious abilities are really distinct, what kind of logic might be at work there? Has anyone actually theorized about this?
Oh, absolutely. Way back in the mid-20th century, actually, a Chilean psychoanalyst named Matt Blanco proposed that the unconscious operates with its own symmetric logic.
Symmetric logic, how's that different?
It's fundamentally distinct from the dualistic either-or logic of the conscious left brain. And here's the kicker. This symmetric logic is exactly what we see at play in a qubit, a quantum bit in a quantum computer.
No way. Really?
Yes. A qubit can be both 0 and 1 at the same time, in superposition. That means A and not A can exist simultaneously. It's the both-and logic that Alfred suggests the unconscious right brain uses.
So left brain, either or, right brain, both and.
That's the idea. While our left brain processes with that dualistic logic, forcing clear choices, the right brain, with its symmetric logic, can comfortably hold seemingly contradictory possibilities at once. That's a hallmark of deep intuition, creativity,
Ah,
those leaps of insight.
that's a profound connection. So it's not just some abstract idea from psychology floating around. Are there other scientific models that actually support this symmetric logic in the brain?
Indeed there are. Giulia Battilotti from the University of Padua presented a model based on quantum states that aligns remarkably well with Blanco's symmetric logic.
Okay.
And neuroscientist Petro Gopic. He describes the dream world, which is, deeply linked to the unconscious. He describes it as a place where paradox reigns and opposites merge to sameness.
That sounds very quantum.
Doesn't it? It's an apt description of the quantum realm. So what we're looking at, potentially, is the idea that the right unconscious brain works like a quantum supercomputer, using a fundamentally different type of logic than the verbal, conscious, classical logic of the left brain.
Okay, the idea of a quantum brain is just incredible, but it immediately begs the question, right? How on earth is quantum coherence achieved in something as, well, noisy and warm and wet as the human brain?
Uh-huh. The warm, wet, and noisy problem.
Yeah. For a long time, scientists were really skeptical because quantum coherence usually needs extreme isolation, super cold temperatures. Our brains are definitely not that.
That's absolutely the critical question. And it's where the field of quantum biology comes in. It's fascinating stuff.
Quantum biology?
Yeah, this emerging field is increasingly finding that evolution has already solved this puzzle in various biological systems. It's not as impossible as it sounds.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, there's growing evidence that birds use quantum processes in their retinas for navigation. Photosynthesis seems to operate more efficiently through long-lived, coherent quantum states. Even aspects of human smell and maybe vision might require quantum processing.
Okay, so nature's already using quantum tricks.
Exactly. So it's not such a huge leap to start looking for it in the brain, the most complex system we know.
So has anyone proposed a specific mechanism? How could it work?
Yes. In 2015, physicist Matthew Fisher from the University of California put forward a really interesting model. He proposed that nuclear spins in phosphorus atoms could actually act as qubits in the human brain.
Phosphorus, like the stuff on matches. Well, not really, but...
Well, it's a key element. And phosphorus is highly abundant in brain tissue, in things like ATP and phospholipids.
Okay, so he's proposing these everyday phosphorus atoms could be the very qubits driving our quantum mind.
Precisely. And his model isn't just theory, it builds on solid lab work. For instance, back in 2013, the University of New South Wales actually created qubits from phosphorus atoms. They shielded them with non-magnetic silicon atoms.
And that helped maintain coherence.
Yes. These phosphorus nuclei have a very weak magnetic field and low spin, which makes them less sensitive to environmental noise. That allows for longer coherence times.
Okay.
So Fisher argues that in the brain, these phosphorus atoms are sufficiently isolated by their own electron clouds and other surrounding atoms with zero spin, enough to preserve quantum coherence for a meaningful period.
But is that enough shielding in the messy brain environment?
Well, here's where it gets really ingenious. The process Fisher describes involves something called pyrophosphate becoming entangled phosphate ions. These then combine with calcium ions and oxygen to form special structures called Posner molecules.
Posner molecules. Never heard of them.
Think of them as tiny, exquisitely crafted quantum bunkers inside the brain. These clusters, they have 6 phosphorus and 9 calcium atoms, seem perfectly designed to provide additional shielding.
Ah, so like an extra layer of protection.
Exactly, enabling these entangled nuclei to maintain coherence for incredibly long periods, potentially, Fisher calculated, up to an incredible 105 seconds.
Wait, 10 to the 5 seconds? That's like a whole day.
A whole day. It's an astonishing prediction.
A whole day of quantum coherence in the brain.
Yeah.
That's truly astounding. So Jay Alfred suggests this Fisher's mechanism, this simultaneous collapse of entangled phosphorus nuclei across different brain regions. That could be the key.
That's the idea. It could be the answer to how the brain integrates information from all its various parts to form one cohesive perception, one reality.
Okay, let's quickly recap the quantum magic that makes this possible. First, there's superposition, right?
Right. Where a qubit can represent 1 and 0 at the same time, like a spinning coin that's neither heads nor tails until it lands.
Which allows for massive parallel processing of information.
Exactly. Handling huge amounts of possibilities simultaneously.
And then there is entanglement.
Entanglement. Spooky action at a distance, as Einstein called it.
Hmm.
Particles become connected, linked, in such a way that measuring one instantly influences the other, no matter how far apart they are.
Which in the brain could mean
It could allow for what you might call orchestrated or coordinated behavior over long distances, potentially explaining how these disparate brain regions could synchronize and act as one unified system.
okay, this is fascinating. So if quantum processes are occurring in the brain, and if they hold this potential for extraordinary computation, could ancient practices, like meditation, have somehow stumbled upon ways to enhance this?
You mean cultivated ways to extend these quantum coherence times to derive benefits, even without knowing the underlying physics?
Yeah, Jay Alfred suggests exactly that, focusing specifically on meditators.
It's a profound idea, isn't it, that these ancient wisdom traditions might have been unknowingly optimizing quantum effects in the brain.
How would that work, according to Alfred?
Well, the suggestion is that meditators' techniques allow those phosphorus nuclei, potentially within Posner molecules, to maintain quantum coherence for longer. And this gives them access to multiple superposed pathways to solutions. It's not just about feeling calm. It suggests meditation could be a direct pathway to those moments of split-second enlightenment.
You mean those sudden insights or solutions that seem to appear from nowhere?
Exactly. Bypassing our usual, slow, logical processes, especially during what's sometimes called analytic meditation, where you're focused on insight.
Okay, so what are some of these specific meditative techniques that might actually have quantum parallels? How could they help the brain function as a, better quantum computer?
Well, a lot of the techniques seem to boil down to reducing noise in the system, both internal and external.
Makes sense. Quantum states are delicate.
Right. So first, meditators aim to quiet external sensory input and internal mental chatter. Think withdrawing to a quiet place, physically isolating yourself,
Less outside interference.
and actively reducing mental verbalizations, quieting that inner monologue. This reduces neural activity, especially in the left cerebral cortex, the classical processor.
So creating a calmer environment for these quantum processes to linger.
Precisely. Allowing them more time before they decohere.
Okay, what else? What about our constant need to label and define everything? That feels very left brain.
Exactly. And that leads to the second point. Practices like deconceptualization and deconstruction.
Deconceptualization.
Yeah, meditation often discourages immediate conceptualizations, judgments, labels. These are strongly linked to what neuroscientists call the verbal conceptual association area, or VCAA. This area generates what we might call useful information, our conscious categorizations, our judgments. But here's the link. Physicists believe that generating useful information actually forces quantum possibilities into a single outcome.
It collapses the wave function.
It collapses the wave function.
Yep.
So techniques like using Zen koans, which are paradoxical, or emphasizing faith over analysis,
Mm.
these effectively nullify the drive for immediate, useful, definite information.
So they keep possibilities open longer.
Right. And studies actually show VCAA activity is drastically reduced in advanced meditators. They're not constantly collapsing possibilities.
So instead of trying to immediately pin everything down, meditators are doing something different with how they observe.
Exactly. Think of it like this. Instead of a strong measurement that immediately collapses a quantum state, meditators are essentially making repeated weak measurements.
Weak measurements.
It's a concept in quantum physics. It allows you to gain some information without completely disturbing the system. In meditation, this is like a gentle, relaxed, non-judgmental awareness.
Oh.
It allows those rich quantum superpositions, all those possibilities, to linger and interact longer without immediately forcing them into a single definite state. It preserves the potential.
That's really interesting. And you mentioned many traditions actively foster that both and thinking we discussed earlier.
They absolutely do. Many meditator traditions emphasize developing right brain superposed logic. It's about moving beyond simple dualities.
And is there evidence for this?
Yes, studies show increased activity and even increased cortical thickness in right hemisphere regions associated with attention and awareness in long-term meditators. And importantly, a reduction in left brain activity during deep meditation.
So they're actively cultivating the quantum side.
It seems that way, fostering that symmetric or both and quantum logic, moving beyond the purely classical dualistic mode.
Okay, this next one sounds really clever. Using noise to counter unwanted quantum noise. How does that work in meditation? Sounds paradoxical.
It does, but it's a fascinating parallel to actual quantum experiments. Scientists at the University of Chicago found they could extend quantum coherence times by introducing specifically tuned noise.
How? Why would adding noise help?
It sounds counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but the tuned noise essentially tricks the quantum system into ignoring other, more damaging background noise.
Okay.
So the idea here is that meditators using mantras, chants, or rhythmic verbalizations might be doing something similar.
The repetition.
Yes, generating specific, stable frequencies that could actually preserve coherence by tuning out the random, chaotic internal brain noise. It's like a biological version of that lab technique, a strategy evolution might have stumbled upon, like we see in photosynthesis.
Wow, nature is clever.
Isn't it just?
And finally, I suppose it comes back to our internal state, our emotions.
Absolutely. The last point is about avoiding certain behaviors. Things like intense anger, lust, greed, jealousy. These create mental agitation, stress, fatigue.
Which translates to noise in the system.
Exactly. They generate noise in the mental environment, increasing erratic neural activity. So avoiding these states, cultivating calmness, naturally subsides that disruptive neural activity and as a result enhances the potential for quantum coherence.
Creating a more stable internal platform for these delicate processes.
That's the idea.
So as we wrap up this incredible deep dive, we've explored this truly fascinating idea that your brain, our brains, might not be just a single classical computer.
But a sophisticated classical quantum hybrid.
Yeah. The left brain handling the conscious either-or logic we're familiar with.
While the right brain might be this incredible unconscious quantum processor using that powerful both-and logic, superposition, and entanglement at play.
This dual architecture, supported by models like Matthew Fisher's with the phosphorus atoms and those amazing Posner molecules, it really offers a completely new way to think about everything.
From the almost unbelievable abilities of savants
to the profound insights people report gaining in meditation, it reframes it all.
Now, it's important to say, Fisher's model definitely needs more thorough testing in the lab. That's crucial.
Sure, of course.
And there are still questions about its exact role. Is it more about consciousness itself or maybe long-term memory encoding? We don't know for sure yet.
Right. But the foundational science, the principles, and the existing evidence from quantum biology, it's incredibly compelling, isn't it?
It really is. It opens up so many possibilities.
It truly makes you wonder, doesn't it, what untapped potential lies within our own minds. We've journeyed from, ancient wisdom to cutting-edge physics, revealing this potential for profound capabilities right inside us. And this raises an even bigger question, maybe a provocative thought for you listening. If our brains are indeed biological quantum computers capable of these extraordinary feats, how might understanding and potentially harnessing this innate quantum ability change human potential?
Especially now,
with artificial intelligence advancing at such an incredible pace.
Right. Could this inherent quantum processing be how human intelligence continues to, pace with AI? Could it unlock capabilities we've only just begun to imagine?
It's a mind-bending thought.
Definitely something to truly ponder for yourself.